sure my phone's off now. Don't need to be that guy.
Good evening, and welcome to the council meeting of May 27th, 2024. We are fortunate to be joined by our sign language interpreters this evening. Please welcome Nicole and Sydney. The meeting is being live streamed on the Town of Kentville YouTube channel, and the most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. A reminder that this week is Apple Blossom Festival. Opening ceremonies are on Wednesday evening at the Berwick Fire Hall, the Children's and the Grand Street Parade in Kentville on Saturday, and we are wishing everyone a happy Apple Blossom. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting package? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? I will remind members of council that we are in decision-making mode and we should be mindful of our decision-making wheel. We have committed to making balanced and respectful decisions and adhering to our code of conduct. This council, through policy and by motion, has adopted Robert's rules as our rules of order, our parliamentary procedure. We will be voting by electronic means for all votes except administrative. And are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before the meeting commences? And we do have quorum. And our first matter on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. So we have been provided with a proposed agenda. CAO, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Your Worship, there are two changes. The first would be to move the Bennett correspondence to in camera as it deals with the land matter. And the second would be to move 4B, Utility and Review Board Decision Next Steps, to 10A. There is some correspondence from our solicitor, which I feel it would be beneficial for council to be aware of before they make a decision on that.
All right, thank you, CAO. And adjournment will move to 11. Are there any other changes? All right, a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Councillor Zabian, thank you. Councillor Huntley, thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. The minutes of the 29th of April 2024 council meeting have been distributed for your review. If there are no changes, the minutes are approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes and the annotated minutes will be added to the electronic meeting file. Are there any changes? No? All good then. All right, moving right along to our business arising. Our first matter is with regards to capital borrowing. The Director of Finance has prepared a detailed report to Council outlining the request for additional 23-24 capital funding. And CAO, did you wish to speak to this before we move to motion?
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe this is an annual process the council goes through. There are three projects that relate to capital from 22-23 that was completed in 23-24 that didn't bring forward their funding source. The remainder are 23-24 capital projects. We're looking at a request to move $138,879 from the capital reserve to cover a number of those projects. This number will be offset because there were savings on the pool of $49,068 that we anticipated coming out of capital reserves that we won't require. And we're also looking at taking two items out of capital from revenue of the current year. They relate to a police vehicle and bringing it into an operational stage for this year, as well as a police technology upgrade that was part of the 2022-23 budget year.
All right, CAO, thank you very much for that. So the motion is that Council approve additional capital funding as requested in the attached memo to the 23-24 capital investment plan in the amount of $180,769 to be funded as follows. A withdrawal from Town of Kentville General Capital Reserve in the amount of $138,879 and a withdrawal from the Town of Kentville 23-24 operating budget in the amount of $41,890. If someone could move that, please. Councillor Maxwell, thank you. Councillor Huntley, thank you for the second. It has been moved and seconded that council approve additional capital funding as requested in the attached memo to the 23-24 capital investment plan in the amount of $180,769 to be funded as follows. A withdrawal from the Town of Kentville General Capital Reserve in the amount of $138,879 and a withdrawal from the Town of Kentville 23-24 operating budget in the amount of $41,890. Is there any discussion on this matter? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the CAO. So there were just two items there. When we talk about the capital review, 2022-2023 WIP items carried forward to the current year without the original source of funding identified. So that confused me, just that sentence confused me. And then when I add up the items, I get 186,769. So I wasn't sure where the 138,879 came from, unless the director was subtracting some things off from the previous years. And sorry to get so granular on this, I just wanted to understand the numbers. Thank you.
So the last two items on the list, police vehicles and police technology, we're suggesting that they come out of capital from revenue for the current year. We believe that the finances can support it. So they wouldn't be part of a transfer from capital reserves. If that answers the second part of the question.
Yep.
The first part was about the funding allocations for the carry forward projects.
Yes.
I don't believe they were carried forward in the 23-24 with a budget for completion, even though they were work in progress from 22-23.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you. That helps.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is on the adoption of the motion to approve the capital funding as requested in the attached memo to the 23-24 capital investment plan in the amount of $180,769 to be funded as follows. A withdrawal from the Town of Kentville General Capital Reserve in the amount of $138,879 and a withdrawal from the Town of Kentville 23-24 operating budget of $41,890. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you very much. The matter of the UARB has been moved to the end, so that moves us right into the deed transfer policies. And we will deal with those individually because there are two of them. The first one is with regards to the deed transfer policy G79 interest. And staff has recommended approval of this, and the motion is that council approve the G79 deed transfer interest policy. Someone could move that, please? So moved. Councillor Maxwell, thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the G79 deed transfer interest policy. Is there any discussion on this or questions for the CAO? Note how we did that. Deputy Mayor? Oh.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, through the chair to the CAO. I would say in your experience with the collection of these such taxes, is it normally something that you have seen in your experience that can be late or are typically late, or what does that collection procedure look like?
So it generally isn't late, but Section 108 of the MGA states that you must have a policy in place that sets your current rate. Plus, there's a rider in there that says if it's more than 30 days late, you'll charge the 10%. So it's really to make sure that we're in compliance with the MGA. I don't anticipate that there will be a large amount of penalties incurred because of the way it's processed.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councillor Sabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. Through the chair, CAO, is it still a date of July 1st you're seeing? Is this becoming in effect?
I believe it will.
Okay.
Until everything is lined up with the province, I can't guarantee
Okay.
that. But my expectation is it will be July 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor York.
Thank you, through the chair, to the CAO. The 10% seems steep. That's on par with everything else and the MGA?
That is on par with Section 108 of the
Okay.
MGA. Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Are you ready for the question? The question is on approval of the G79D transfer interest policy. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. And our next D-transfer tax policy is with regards to allocation of the funds, and staff is recommending that we approve the G80 D-transfer allocation policy. And the motion is that council approve the G80 D-transfer allocation policy. If someone could move that, please. Councillor Huntley, thank you, and Councillor York for the second, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the G80D transfer allocation policy. Is there any discussion on this matter? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the chair. Just the question around, again, in your experience, have you seen normally when these deed transfer taxes are imposed that they typically would go to capital? Or in your experience, have you seen them more go into operational type things?
So there's a mixed package. I've seen a number of municipalities just bring them into general operations and use them as part of general operations. I've seen others like Pictou County where they've been earmarked for capital purposes. Part of the report from administration recommended that specifically the D-transfer tax proceeds be used for capital, and part of the rationale for D-transfer tax in the MIN's report was that it could be seen as a buy-in to the existing infrastructure when you move to the municipality. So.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, and through the chair to CAO. Would this also allow us to use funds from the deed transfer tax to help towards a wellness facility when that comes up?
Yes, it absolutely could.
Okay, thank you.
CAO, I have a question with regards to the actual wording. So in the procedures, the last line talks about it shall be allocated to a specified D-transfer tax capital reserve for future use. Should the word capital be between future and use, or is it just understood that it's because it's in a capital reserve, it shall be used for capital?
So if I'm off base, I will expect the solicitor to correct me, but once you put money into a capital reserve, it is to be used for capital. It's not like an operational reserve where you could allocate it to capital or operational.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. Through the chair, CEO, I know a lot of units, when they do collect this tax, they earmark it for a big project, not for regular capital projects, but say we were gonna, build our own center, our own facility of sorts, and then that money is it kind of builds up after a decade or 5 years or whatever. That's kind of what I always anticipated if we came to this point where we were gonna collect it. I don't know how the rest of council feels about that, but from what I'm reading from this, it's just gonna go back in the regular pot, and then we're just gonna spend it off most likely year by year, rather than save it for something for the future. That was my, I'll be frank, I wasn't for collecting it, period, but now that we are, I think that's just where my head is, where it probably should go, but I'm one of 7, so thank you.
Through you, your worship, administration was recommending to go into a capital reserve. We have a number of areas where we expect to have significant expenditures in the near future. A rec center potentially being one, the arena potentially being another, stormwater management potentially being another. You will see in the operational budget when it's circulated that administration has made a strong effort to move additional monies from operations to be available for capital as well. But my belief is that it should be used towards large capital, but we have a number of large capital items that are on the horizon that it can be allocated to once we have more certainty in it.
Thank you, CAO. All right, are you ready? If there's no further discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is on approval of the G80 deed transfer allocation policy. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. And our next item is the recommendation arising from the CAC meeting held on May 13th, and it will be presented by Councillor Zabian. Councillor Zabian?
Thank you, Mayor Snow. At the May 13th, 2024 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director of Recreation Craig Langell and Recreation staff Becca Craig and Laura Jacobs gave a presentation about the next few months of summer programs for Kentville residents and introduced some recreation staff. They provided detailed information on the end of the summer camp model and the many programs that staff will be offering the community. June and July calendars showed the extensive programs being offered to residents. Council Advisory Committee recommends to Council to make past practice day camps a priority of Council, and I so move that.
Thank you. And a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that Council make past practice day camps a priority of Council. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have any problem making day camps a priority, but I would also like assurances from the Recreation Department that maximum participation for children will also play into that as well, so that we're not sacrificing a smaller number at the expense of a larger number. And so what I'm saying is that I would like to see as many kids involved in summer programming as we can get, and have day camps as well. But I don't want to sacrifice. And so just, if Recreation can keep doing that, that would be great.
So through you, Your Worship, if I can speak to that. Given the timing of the CAC meeting, administration felt that it had to move forward with developing what they could for summer camps. If we waited for this council meeting to make a decision, it would have been almost impossible to provide any level of camp programs. The first criteria for administration were to address safety concerns with how it was felt that past camps ran in locations, and there was an extensive search for locations. Very appreciative of the fire department for making their facility available when they could, and very appreciative for Recreation to be creative in how they were able to address the concerns and still offer an 8-week camp program. But again, it just came down to, if we waited for this council meeting to do anything, then we wouldn't have been able to have offered any day camp programs, and we didn't feel that that was the intent of council given the discussion at the last meeting.
Thank you, CAO.
Thank you.
Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. Through the chair, CAO, I've been reading the emails, the updates you provided for us, and I thank you for them, but I don't understand how many staff Recreation has hired in total to run their new programming as well as the off-week camps. You said 7 additional, so you can just give me some clarity on that.
So I would have to get that from Recreation. I can forward it tomorrow, but it will be part of what is presented as far as the operating budget package on Thursday. So it will be coming forward to council in detail.
And the reason I asked that is because when we were at CAC, Mayor Snow asked the staff from Recreation, and they said that they typically hire 7. So from what I understood from that, and I may have misread it, was that they've hired 7 to do their new programming, and then there's an additional 7 being hired to do the camps. So what does each group of people do each week when they're not there? And I know you can't answer that question, but you said you'll provide that. If you want to, I'll got a couple more things, but if you want to answer that.
So I believe in my email I did indicate that the early childhood education employees that were hired were only interested in working part-time, so they will be working every other week at our day camps, and they will be compensated only for the time they work. Anything beyond that, I would want to speak to Recreation before I provided information to council. I want to make sure I'm accurate in what I'm putting forward.
No, and I appreciate that, but that means, I want to understand this. We as a town are going to offer camp every second week, and then on those off weeks, this town is also going to offer a new model programming, which is we're going to need staff to run those, but we're getting no revenue in from, or not much revenue in from parents paying for the service. So, and then on the side, we've partnered with an outside organization to offer camps on the weeks that we're not doing them. But we're really not working with them. We're just going to advertise their website, and then they're going to carry their own, load those off weeks. Is that what I'm understanding from today? It's very confusing, and I don't want to upset anybody, but I'm very, very confused. Because the direction I thought that we had as a council came to last week or 2 weeks ago was to resume traditional day camps. And maybe the motion was worded so vaguely that I guess it left interpretation, because traditional day camps in Kentville were weekly, not bi-weekly. And I don't understand how we navigated from that to then partnering with an outside. And I appreciate the outside group. I know the people involved, they're awesome people. I'm not discounting that. I'm glad that they've stepped up to the plate, but I'm just very, very confused. And I just have to say that. And I don't know if there's an opportunity now, but I guess it is my opportunity. Perhaps I should amend my motion. I can amend it. It's on the table. I'm allowed to
No.
amend it. I just need a seconder to,
No, you can't. It's a recommendation from the,
but we haven't voted on it yet. So
CAC?
I can do an amendment.
no, you can't. It's a
But
recommendation
I made the
from
motion in the first
CAC.
place, though. At CAC, though.
You don't have that right, no. This is a recommendation from the CAC, and it is, we directed the CAO to work with the Recreation Department to continue the summer camp program, and as has been stated, the biggest criteria was the safety, and we've met that, and we've met the goal of having 7 weeks of camp, and that's what we have, although not all being done by Town of Kentville. However, we have partnered, as we discussed, and we found a happy medium so that we can provide the free camps and these paid camps.
So with all due respect, if the partners come in and decide to use the rec hub as a facility, we couldn't use it. So I'm just, this leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and I have to say it because I can't understand. I still don't understand why we're not offering them, why we've partnered up, sort of partnered up. I mean, we're really, you're either gonna pay the Town of Kentville, or you're gonna pay Camp Kindness. Those are your two options. So if you've got a child and you wanna send them to camp 2 weeks in a row, or whatever it is, whatever 2 weeks you want, you're gonna book 1 week with the town, and then you're gonna go call Camp Kindness and secure the other week. So they're not really partnered. The staff doesn't overlap, from what I was told today. They're totally different entities altogether. And they need a place to operate their camps too. So if they end up using the rec hub as a facility, I have to say that would be very disappointing to me, because they would be using the same facility that 2 weeks ago we were told was not fit to put children in. So I've read all that, and I appreciate the very detailed correspondence from UCAO. You're giving us the information back. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the work staff has done, and I definitely appreciate Camp Kindness, but I just can't, for the life of me, and I've read these over and over to make sure I'm understanding them properly, why this has become this, when I can't figure it out. And I wish I had an answer, and people ask me every day. I get phone calls and emails all day asking me what happened. We ran this. I didn't run it, but we had very talented people that ran this, and there was never an issue. And now there's more than ever there, and we're gonna cut them. First, we weren't gonna do them, and then the decision was, we gave direction to do them, which we left all here happy. We worked as a team, and now we're cut back to half. I don't understand. I can't, and it looks like, and I know you can't confirm till tomorrow, that we've hired more seasonal staff than usual without these 8-week camps. So I don't know what else to say. I can't say anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor York.
Thank you. We received some of this information just later, or we got it earlier today, but I unfortunately didn't get to it until just before the meeting. As we're meeting on Thursday to go over the budget and where some of these questions could be answered as we review the operational budget, are we able to postpone this conversation and this decision until after we get a little bit more information from UCAO and as we review some of those budget numbers, just so we can put some things into place a little bit more clearly? Because I do have some questions, but I think they might be answered in a budget conversation, or they might be answered once we get some more information from you. Are we able, as we're already meeting on Thursday anyway as a group, could we make that decision on Thursday, or is that?
I'm going to say that we're voting on a motion that we have asked the CAO to go to our recreation department and make day camps a priority of council. We are now being provided with 7 weeks of day camps, exactly what we asked for. And we asked for flexibility, we have that. Last year, we partnered with Kings County Family Resource Center. This year, we have a different partner. We were worried that we didn't have any partners when we came to the CAC meeting. We have a new partner. We have 7 weeks of day camp, exactly what we wanted. And we're going to have the free camps for a lot of kids to participate in who may not have the financial ability to participate in the other camp. So I think that we've scored big time on this one, and we've gotten everything we've asked for. It's just not in the standard way that we've been delivering this. So it's a new delivery model, and I think that we have to vote on the motion that's before us, okay, not on a motion that we want to create from the answers we've been provided with the questions that we asked.
All right.
Thank you. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. The motion itself, and I wish I could rewind 2 weeks ago, because that motion is so vague that it means that we're gonna make it a priority for day camps, but it doesn't outline anything. And the motion really should have read that day camps are in place from July 2nd until the week of August 19th. And they were day camps from a time set until, whatever, 8 to 5. I think, and I guess we failed there because I took that to mean that they were gonna be, when you said traditional, to me it meant what we've done every year here in Kentville. So the motion wasn't the motion that I intended in my RFD. It was pre-made prior to the meeting, and we all voted on it, and I voted on it as well. But looking back, I guess that's a good lesson to learn, that we have to be maybe more clear in our motions and more precise, because as a counselor here, that's definitely was not my intent, and I brought this forward, and I know many of you around here supported it. Definitely not what the intent was, and I appreciate all you've said, Mayor Snow, but from what I've looked at and what I've asked today, it looks like we're spending more money on staff, and still, and I don't mean recreational staff, I mean seasonal staff, we're spending more and we're delivering less. It's costing us more because we're not getting the 8-week revenue from the camps. We're only getting 4 weeks, yet we're paying people for 7 weeks. So and we're talking about money at the same time that we need to collect deed tax, and we need to put this in, we need to, monitor our spending. But here's another example of a decision that again, I know I'm a broken record and I apologize. I don't understand. Thank you.
Well, I will remind you that your recommendation was for council to direct the CAO to work with the Recreation Department with the goal for the town of Kentville to continue with the summer camp program. And that's exactly what we have. We have 7 weeks worth of camps. And further to that, I will also say that had you gone to the detail of saying exactly what those camps, that's not our job. Our job is governance, our job is the budget, and to ensure that we have the funding to provide the services that our citizens are looking for. That's our job.
No, absolutely, but I expected our staff to run the camps, not to partner with an outside source. That's
Well,
what I was looking for. I pay taxes to the town of Kentville, just like we all do here, and I don't think that we needed to partner with, and nothing against this partner, they're great people, but I guess I can't understand why still, if they're gonna use the rec hub, why we didn't hire, anyway, I made my case, I won't speak anymore.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So after the email came out last week from CAO Lawrence, I sort of went back to the last meeting, the CSE meeting, just to listen to some of the comments. And I just had made note there that the CAO was fairly clear when he said that administration will make every effort, but that there was not going to be any short circuits on sort of trying to create a more sustainable model, and that the camps as such would certainly not be as comprehensive as we had in the past. So when I saw the synopsis come out last Friday, my response was that was sort of my expectation from the discussion that happened here at CAC. That was just my interpretation. So I just want to make that comment.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. The Councillor Crossway has confused me too. I think that this is a happy medium to what we asked for. Of course, I didn't want to switch from that model, that new model, because I liked it. I liked the fact that it involved, could involve up to 100 people through the summer, and day camps were, the amount that would be involved would be significantly less. And also that those activities were free of charge for people that couldn't really afford to put their kids in activities. And I look at, and being an educator, maximum participation is the most important thing for me, and children are the most important thing for me. And I think we accomplished that goal. And I don't want to see us go back to a model that is purely camps at the expense of less participation and shutting out a portion of our population that can't afford to be active in the summer. And so I like this. It meets a happy medium. We're offering exactly what we did last year. We used a partner last year. We're using a partner this year. And for me, I'm willing to settle that, yes, we're going to have the camps now as well, and we're also going to be able to provide some of those activities. And I think the Recreation Department has done a good job at finding that happy medium. And so just wanted to pass that along. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is to make past practice day camps a priority of council. Voting is now open. And the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to our council reports, and our first report is Councillor Gerard.
Your Worship, again this month, today was my first meeting, which was Police Commission, and I'm sure Chair York will give a fulsome report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're gonna have to get you some work.
Yes, absolutely.
Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. My first meeting, May 6th, was the Planning Education Workshop. It was held here by C&D Community Design. It was very informative, and if there was one thing that I would suggest from it, that it would have been given to brand-new counselors once they got into their first 6-month swing, so they could understand a little more, because it was very insightful. So thank you for giving that to us, for sure. And then on May 21st, we had the Arena Assessment and Feasibility Study, the engineers' report that was presented. I don't think there's any surprises to us, so thank you for that. The event that I attended was the Holly Color Festival. I'd never been to one before at Center Square. I couldn't believe how happy everybody was there, throwing color at each other. And I learned a lot more about what the event was and its meaning, so thank you to everyone who put that off. There's assorted meetings that I've listed. Some were with, one of them with King's Transit, want to find out with the new buses, the electric buses, and the discussion of bus routes. I met with the Acadia professor on the SMILE program about his participation in Kentville. Excuse me. And NSFM Spring Conference was May 8th and 9th. I had a couple of meetings with residents, at the MLA's office, and Climate Caucus Election Committee meeting for their new executive director and now a chair. I met with a resident who has a childcare program. We talked about an initiative that I actually learned from the Michelin Cities conference. So we're working on that. Divert Nova Scotia, follow up and trying to learn what Divert is besides just being provincial. I want to find out about what sort of funding that comes back to the 7 regions and what the breakdown is. So they're working on that for me. And I attended John Lore's supper. That was in Port Williams on May 22nd.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I attended all my council meetings that I was supposed to attend. April 25th, I took part in the Annapolis Valley Trails meeting, and I have a report here that I'll go over in a minute. On May 6th, we had a planning education workshop where we reviewed many terms used in the planning processes, such as development agreements, variances, site plan approvals, public hearings, and so on. It was a great review for council. With the Inclusion and Accessibility Committee on May 10th, it was mentioned that a bus shelter is being worked on or looked at for in front of the Bell Building. So there could possibly be some parking spaces that will have to be moved or removed. The Welcoming and Diversity Task Team had their first meeting on May 15th. It is a very diverse group, and they will be looking at various tasks and giving their opinions on them and how to move forward. And those tasks would be to make our town inclusive, and how can these various groups be more involved in what's going on in town. The Oakdean Community Garden Group is underway. They will receive help from, I think it was the Edge, weekly to maintain the gardens. New members are always welcome. We also looked at the new accessibility plan and reviewed the evaluation section. Also looked at ideas for task teams in the coming months. May 17th, we had an arena condition assessment and feasibility study workshop, and it was a thorough look at the report by the group who did the assessment and feasibility study in our area and on our arena, and I was very encouraged by the information presented and look forward to further discussions in the future. Events, May 11th, I took in the opening of the Kentville Heritage Center. It was a great crowd for opening day, and I would continue to encourage citizens to drop in over the summer to look at some of the artifacts and information that's on display. May 18th, I dropped into the Oakdean Community Garden. I knew the group was working over there, so I went over. Just some amazing work being done. They raised the old planting boxes, so it's much easier for seniors to do some gardening there. They installed rain barrels, which will be useful if we get some rain to help water the plants. As well, Public Works installed a footbridge, and that was donated by King's Tech and will provide easy passage for residents in the housing project next door to the garden. And that is amazing. And just kudos to Public Works. They did an amazing job there, and King's Tech for donating that bridge. It's a welcome addition, not just to the garden club, but to Oakdean Park as well. So it was really, really nice. So many thanks to all the community garden volunteers, as well as project coordinator, staff member Roxy, and he's really pulling the community together in that area, and would just love anybody in any part of town to come in and help with that community garden. Also went to the Holi Festival of Colors, dropped in on that. Holi, for those of you that don't know, is a popular and significant Hindu festival celebrated as the festival of colors, love, and spring. That's what it's all about. Our festival featured colorful chalk dust representing the color, lots of traditional music and food to complete the love, and it is spring. It was great to witness our newcomers sharing their culture with us, and lots of fun was had by everyone. And so fantastic to see the diverse communities coming out and showing us some of the traditions from their areas that they used to live. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. April the 25th, I attended Regional Sewer Committee. We had an operations and compliance update. We did not have quorum, so we were not able to do any motions. We were to have Regional Sewer Committee meeting last week, but it was postponed by the county, Kings County CAO, and we don't have a next date on that as of yet. May the 6th was a council planning, session planning with C&D. Planning, it was an excellent session, as some of my other colleagues have said. I look forward to seeing some of the suggestions to the amendments to the LUB and the MPS. I certainly think it will help us as a council moving forward with any and all developers that come forward. There was discussions around development agreements, site plan approvals, those sorts of things. So it was a very, it was a good workshop, and I took a lot from it. May the 7th, I went to a session that was put on by Kings North NDP with special panel guests to talk about housing and the many aspects. It was hosted by not Councillor York, but Jillian York there. And the panelists were Matt Jennings, Claudia Chender, John McKay, and our Alicia Christie here. There were a lot of topics that were discussed. I just mentioned rent control versus rent cap, but that was just one of the many topics. May the 14th was, I went to the Annapolis Valley Tourism event where the Valley Wren and Tourism Working Committee put on an event for a number of folks that work in that venue, and there was an announcement from Cody Blois on the funding for that position for 2 years. May 15th was KBC. They presented the March 31st, 2024 financial statements. We welcomed the new ED, Jordan Banyan, and June the 18th will be the KBC AGM, and at which time they will do a presentation of those financials and have a recap of the year. There's a new board member, Brent Bashaw, and I said see attached minutes, but there's no attached minutes because they weren't done as of yet. May the 22nd was Investment Advisory Committee, where we had a report from our TD Wealth Investment Advisor. The portfolio is just under 13 million, and our year-to-date yield was 0.705 versus the balance CAD of negative 0.87. We have 400,000, yes, coming due next month, and the approach will likely be to ladder the funds as rates are not expected to lower until mid to late summer, which does us well against the bond rates. KBC was a farewell dinner for Genevieve, the previous executive director, on April 30th, and May 4th, I attended the Rotary Gala for their 100th centennial year. And that is my report.
Thank you. Councillor York.
Thank you. I just noticed my report isn't in the meeting package, so all good. I've attended everything that my colleagues have mentioned so far, so I won't go into things that others have mentioned. I did attend Diversity Kings on May 6th, where we talked about upcoming events and then recapping some of the previous ones. The town of Kentville is hosting a lot from now through the end of the summer, and so those are on the Diversity Kings radar, and we'll be promoting those as well. I also had the opportunity to attend the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities and the Chiefs of Police meeting that was held in Truro. It was an interesting conversation. We had members from the NSFM, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, as they are doing some surveys and questionnaires around policing in Nova Scotia, and then also discussing the many changes and challenges of policing across the province. So we had the opportunity with the board chairs and the chiefs of police and NSFM to all be in the same room and have that conversation, which doesn't happen all that often. So it was an excellent opportunity. And I'm sure there will be more conversations as we work through the policing review and go through all of that, that will be coming through boards and then through committees to the public. I also attended the Holy Festival, which was a lot of fun, and my council colleague, Councillor Zabian, would appreciate, and probably is the only one who might appreciate, that we are now at a stage where Baby Shark is played by DJs, and that was a really fun moment. So I'm not sure if you were there for that bit, but it was delightful. Also attended last week the tourism levies conversation hosted by the Valley Wren, just as an opportunity to talk about and look at what tourism levies are and how they're being used across the province. We did have a police commission meeting today to discuss the budget, but that was today and not in the report. But I will say that we are pleased to approve the budget to be presented to town council. So that is my succinct report.
Thank you. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I didn't have any committee meetings in the last month, but I will highlight some of the things I've done. So I did attend the workshop with C&D Community, as my colleagues have mentioned, and the draft building assessment report meeting that we had for the Centennial Arena. That was a great session, very informative about the repairs that need to be done to that building and possible upgrades. I'm just gonna say that they look like, very attractive upgrades, but I do worry that we have other matters that are pressing, and I think we should deal with those. I also think we should finally resolve the matter of the Regional Recreational Center first before we're tied into too many projects. I did also attend, as Councillor York just said, the Holy Festival, and I'm just gonna highlight that Mayor Snow dabbed my cheek with a little bit of chalk, and one of the hosts must have thought I liked it because he came over moments later and just poured it over my head. So unless she told him to do that, but I left purple. I went back like Barney. So, and over the month, I've had several phone calls over the CAM programming in Kentville, as well as the footbridge on the Harvest Moon Trail. But CEO has assured us that there will be a temporary fix in place soon. And other issues, a lot of issues about the sidewalks, but those are being taken care of. No pain, no gain, right? And the last issue, just because it's this time of the year, always, and I'm sure you all get the same, a lot of phone calls and emails and drop-ins about the beautiful planners by Town Clock. And I know they're meant to be street calming, but it still is a safety concern for me. I think they're beautiful, but it is a safety concern if somebody's, got a mobility issue or somebody's not really tall, they can get missed there. Not everybody slows down to enjoy them. And that was my month. Thank you.
All right, thank you. CAO, did you want to give us an update since CAC?
Yes, Your Worship. The number one task that I've been working on is the operating budget. Also, we've begun contract negotiations with the police department. I had one full day that was very productive, working with departments on various issues, of which one we discussed tonight, which was recreation. And Director of Planning, process continues. We are now at the stage where we'll be requesting references and doing reference checks on our candidates. That's
All right, thank you very much for that. And now my report. So you have my report. It was part of the package. There's a couple things I'd really like to highlight. On the 13th of May, I was invited up to Aldershot to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Kosovo refugees. And I actually put down in my report one of the emails that one of the young women who was there sent to me. She said, "Our family is so grateful to yourself, the Army, the staff, the wonderful volunteers, and the journalists. Again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything. The town of Kentville has a rare and special feel to it. As we explored a bit of the valley on our way back to Halifax, we were moved by the kindness and smiles we saw all around. Kentville will always have a piece of our hearts for all the warmth, generosity, safety, and solace it offered us. We look forward to returning someday soon to experience its magic again." So there were six women. Three of them would have been children at the time. One would have been one would have been 8, and the other one was 12. The 8-year-old had her 3-year-old son with her. And one of the volunteers, one of the Red Cross volunteers had, if you can remember those Zeddy teddy bears that Zellers used to have at Christmas time, well, they had a whole bunch of those and had given them to each one of the children. She had one left over, and she gave it to this little boy who, he had no interest in it. But the mom, who, as I said, was 8 years old when she came here, she hugged it, and for the rest of the tour, she held on to it, and she said, I still feel how I felt when we came to Canada. She said, we had been sleeping out in the bush, or in the rough, she said, in Kosovo. And she said it was so horrible because all we could hear were the bombs, and it was just so noisy and awful. And she said, all of a sudden we were here, and it was so beautiful, and it was May. So, you know, we often take May for granted, and it's not always the best month. But here was this 8-year-old hanging onto this teddy bear, and she was talking about it, and she says, I still feel it. So at Aldershot, they actually took us into one of the rooms that these folks would have had. So you open up this door, and if you can imagine, the room is about half the length of this. There's 8 bunk beds, and between the bunk beds, there's lockers. And it's probably one of the ugliest places you've ever seen in your life. And I'll say I'm former Air Force, so we didn't really have metal bunk beds in the Air Force, but anyway, Army does. And these people were so happy to have this ugly space, and they couldn't believe how wonderful we were. And so I'm going to say to every single person who did anything 25 years ago to help these folks, they have not forgotten it, and they're teaching their young children about this. And they were relating stories about the children that were born, and there were weddings. And I guess somewhere along the way, kids found, the Red Cross had brought wheelchairs to help people move around. Anyway, the kids had found these wheelchairs, and there's a hill behind the mess at Aldershot, and the kids were using these wheelchairs to have races down the hill. And one of the women in the kitchen had been there, and that kitchen was brand new in May of 1999. And they were actually the first people who ate in that kitchen. And, you know, it was just one of those moments in time where you're so proud of the community that you live in. And I relate to every single one of you, and you know, every resident and every person who did that. Is we rose to the same occasion in 9/11. And you know, we've done the same thing over and over again, and we continue to do these things, and it speaks to who we are as people, and people who come from away don't forget that. The young woman who I said was 8 years old, her and her family actually live in Halifax. Her father was an interpreter, and she said to me that they lived here in Kentville, in this area, for 3 years after they were brought here, and they lived by working on farms, and that's how they made their money until her father got his job in Halifax, and they moved there. So your warmth, your generosity, it doesn't go unnoticed or forgotten. And I think that of all the things that I've done over the last month, that had to have been the most special. And I need every one of you to know how much they appreciate us and this place that we call home. And that is my report. So let's move on to new business. Our matter is with regards to funding for Stormwater Management Master Plan, the Provincial Flood Risk Investment Infrastructure Program, CAO. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start by committing that the $100,000 for the Stormwater Master Plan is in the operating budget. We are now seeking opportunities to offset or augment some of the funding requirements for it. One of the programs that is available is the Provincial Flood Risk investment infrastructure program. As part of an application to that program, we require council endorsement. So that is what we're here seeking, is a motion to endorse the application from the town.
Thank you, CAO. So the motion is that council endorse the submission of an application to the Provincial Flood Risk Investment Infrastructure Program for 24-25 fiscal year to offset the cost of stormwater master plan. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor York for the second. Did I see your hand?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council endorse the submission of an application to the Provincial Flood Risk Investment Infrastructure Program for 24-25 fiscal year to offset the cost of stormwater master plan. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Through Chair to CAO, I'm just wondering how much is given in that provincial flood risk plan, investment infrastructure program. Like, I'm sure it probably varies, but what would be the maximum amount?
Through you, Your Worship, if I could provide that information tomorrow, I want to make sure I'm accurate on it.
Okay.
There was a push from staff to make sure that our application was filed in a timely manner, and if I'm completely honest with council, the one question that I didn't answer, or didn't ask, was the cost sharing percentage. So you will get that first thing in the morning, and I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. I was just curious. Thank you.
Are there any further questions or discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is on endorsement of the submission of an application to the Provincial Flood Risk Investment Infrastructure Program for 24-25 fiscal year to offset the cost of a stormwater master plan. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. We have one matter on correspondence, and that is from the Department of Municipal Affairs, and it is with regards to changes to the MGA, which include changes to planning and code of conduct, and there's also some other miscellaneous ones. But if you look at it, there's a chart involved with it, and not all of the changes have passed through Province House, and there are some that need further regulations. So they are not all in effect at this point in time. Oh, Councillor Maxwell, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. With regards to the code of conduct, do we have a written code of conduct coming from the province? Is it, we've, you know, they're putting in these things in place, but do we have one?
That's a really great question, Councillor Maxwell, and I'm going to tell you that Minister Lohr was peppered with the same questions at the NSFM conference, and they expect that it will be out for the 2024 newly elected councils.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, our citizens are invited to make comment to council on any matter currently before the council. Items nothing. Please state your name and your address, and keep your address to high level. We're trying to be cognizant of your confidentiality, and your comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Sharon Keogh, and I live in Kentville, and I've got 3 things. First one with respect to recreation. We gave recreation $330,000, of which $220,000, I believe, was targeted for administration. Prior to giving them all this extra money, one of the things that we ran here every year for the last 40 years was day camps. And with all of this extra money, we're getting all kinds of wonderful activities that they presented last at CAC meeting. But day camps are what you basically put down. I've got to say I take exception to when you have councillors or that want to add to motions or change them or or just get the topics out in order to, and they're stonewalled. You can't do it perhaps I'm not a scholar enough of Robert's Rules of Order, but I would suggest the ones that are talking up here that want to do that, you might want to study it a little better, because there's got to be a way around that. Anyway, moving on. The other thing is, Councillor Maxwell indicated that there was a report on the rink study. Is that available? Because that would be something that I would really like to be able to read. But most of all, and the reason why I'm here, and all I had planned on talking about, is this. The town is facing huge storm water runoff issues, and as development surges, i.e. we have 2 new Bryson developments that are now in the works, unless those are carefully monitored and inspected, it'll only get worse. I believe council, after citizen outrage, issued a directive to have a detailed engineering study completed for the entire town that would identify where we are vulnerable and to prioritize mitigation. So my question is, what is the status of that study? I believe the objective of it is that once we are armed with such information, we can revise our MPS and LUB, and a long-term capital budget can be identified to mitigate and monitor as close to a net zero runoff as we can get. Key and more importantly, strategic to mitigate such water runoff is protecting nature's own defenses. The Blomidon Naturalist Society, botanists, have told you how important Mr. Cousins' land is. The land you want to expropriate is the oldest part of this forest. Some trees are over 200 years old. The root system alone likely provides water barriers that will cost a fortune to replicate. Whereas an alternative route, the same botanists have told you that the forest growth is so much younger, hence won't provide anywhere near the same protection that Mr. Cousins' land currently does. So yeah, an alternative route might cost a bit more, but overall, will it? Now, we don't know. Mr. Cousins certainly does not know where you are in this expropriation process, but you have had that man tortured for over a year now.
Time.
A year. Not only is the lack of planning evident, but it is simply cruel. Please prioritize this. Thank you.
I'll ask you to hold your applause, please. This is the council chamber.
My name is Ron Cousins, and I'd like to read a letter from my sister's written from, she lives in British Columbia and she can't be here, and about regards of the town wanting to take my land, to whom it may concern. The woodlot on School Street Extension has been in our family for over 70 years. This land has been cared for many of these years by my brothers, Brian and Ronald. After retiring, Ron in particular devoted his time and money to look after this property by measuring himself in learning and practicing silviculture. He has encouraged all growth by selective cutting to protect the strength of the acacia forest on his property. Over the years, the town of Kentville has, on the other hand, run 2 pipelines and 2 power lines over parts of our property without notice and without compensation. Enough is enough. The value of this property is a breath of fresh air, is carefully delated in resave the old growth forest in Kentville. A report by Blomidon Natural Society. Access to a new project proposed by Bryson Developments does not need to use any of Ron Cousins' property. Other arrangements could be and should be made. Ronald Cousins, the current owner, has plans to leave this forest to my daughter, Dr. Jennifer Baggs of Victoria, British Columbia, who has agreed to see it donated to a land trust restoring the Acacia Forest by Jamie Simpsons for the benefit of all. Signed, Diane Beggs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm John Burka. I'm Secretary of the Blomidon Naturalists, and I live in 12 Miners Landing in Kentville, so I'm a citizen of Kentville. And I wrote a letter to council about, must be almost a year ago, regarding Ron's property. And I have also taken the advice of a former mayor who was an engineer who was part of the Hiltz road design, and who said there's no need to cut the corner. It's just an inconvenience to make the turn around the property. Removing old growth forest is basically counterproductive to the way that Kings County is going in trying to preserve woodlands, and especially old growth is essential if you want to, like you said, like the lady in her letter said, the motto of Kentville is a breath of fresh air right behind you. And we don't want to remove trees that provide the fresh air for Kentville. And so rather take the inconvenience of the turn, don't cut off the property, cut through the property to make your road. It's just, it's completely unnecessary, and we want to save trees instead of destroying them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis Keogh, 29 Lacey Boulevard. Just a couple of quick comments. I'm mindful of, we're rolling out a new recreation program, and I appreciate Councillor Maxwell's comments on participation levels by people who possibly can't afford day camps. But I would encourage you strongly to recommend to your recreation department that they track participant hours so that we can do a post-mortem at the end of September. So you should expect a report from recreation department that tells you, was this a good choice? Was this the new model you should be aiming for? Or should we be basically providing facilities and letting volunteers provide? Like you don't run a minor baseball program, do you? No, you provide facilities. That was the town's role historically when I was on council. We did do the day camps, but that was kind of a sideline because it was I think even some of the staff, their children participated in those day camps. Anyway, that's my comment. I had a non-citizen asked me to pass on his concerns about the signage and the lane painting behind west of the arena where the bike lane ends, and it's, in his words, it's a recipe for disaster. There's total confusion as to who belongs in which lane. People coming off of the side street, they just stop there and they stay. They don't proceed like typically you would have expected. The two lanes would go out in their respective cars would go out in their respective lanes, and then there would be dotted line at some point, and they could cross over. But there's no signage there, and you got to tell the people what logic you want them to use when they're traveling that portion of the street. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Gary Randall, live in the town of Kentville, mayor and council. Just wondering, and I don't expect an answer, but I will ask the question, and maybe sometime when land isn't not talked about, I'll get an answer. But just like to know, is town council aware of any offer by the town that no water retention ponds will be built on Ron Cousins' property, contingent to the town getting his land for the Donald Hiltz connector? I think it's an important question. And I think, I don't know how you get answers here, but I think it should be explored. You people should know if that's the case, especially since it's contingent upon getting his land. I don't like the way I said it. I thought about it a lot. And as Ron and I have said, we've got a job to do here. We've got to protect this forest. The town has a job to do the right thing for the citizens. The CAO has a job to do, to work for the town. So I think we're all doing something for the town here. Maybe we don't all agree, but that question is an important question, and I'd like to know an answer. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sean Peck. My family's owned the land next to Ron's for a long time. I was taught by my father to select cut, not just go and clear cut everything all out because of erosion and all that stuff. The end results of what is happening now with erosion, coming down from Ron's land, coming up from higher. Yes, I know about all the connector, seen it built, watched it built, whatever. But the erosion that's coming down through has now ripped our land all apart, and it's going down farther. I can go right down to the ditches, and they're all the way down to Main Street, and they're washing out, and you have all these apartments flooding out because of the erosion. People want to cut up trees off. Now the root system's not there, and there's no structure. I hope that when they do try to build what they're going to build up there, a nice holding tank, will the drainage be proper, that we're not getting our land and his land and taken out because of erosion, because there's no trees there's no root systems. And like I said, our family's been there for a long time. So I know exactly what he's going through, and I don't want to see the old growth gone, because it doesn't come back. You got it in 10 minutes, the tree's dropped, and it's 30 to 50 years before anything comes up. And it all depends what comes up, if it does ever. So cut it all down, and then we have no forest, and we have no brush of fresh air. I mean, I just don't quite understand that, but that's why we don't clear cut. We try to select cut and not, keep the erosion and not from having it. And this is the worst I've ever seen it in my life. And I've been up there all the time with my father, who is now passed, but I've gone up there, go in the back ravine next to the gorge, and you could see all the deer tracks and enjoy all the nature stuff. It's not there now. I can bring my kids now, and I don't see it. I got 5 deer that hang around, and they're scattered because there's nowhere for them to go, and that's the only forest around. But yeah, that's just my logic on it. We don't have any structure of that woods land anymore, so that's basically where I'll leave it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Patrick Whiteway. I live in Black Rock, and so I really appreciate the opportunity to address you guys here tonight. Thank you, Your Worship, for that anecdote you gave about the Kosovo refugees. That was fantastic. Those people remembered 25 years later. And I would like to support the people that have spoken here tonight about Mr. Cousins' land. I think 25 years from now, the children of Kentville will thank you guys if tonight you deny the expropriation of Mr. Cousins' land.
Hi, Town Council. My name's Robert McFadden there, live on School Street. Had the pleasure of meeting Ron a few years ago when I moved here. I urge you to take no action that would result in the destruction of the Acadian old-growth forest owned by Mr. Ron Cousins for the Donald Hills Connector. This forest is an irreplaceable natural resource that provides critical ecological benefits and water regulation. There's an alternative route available that will not harm this precious forest. Please prioritize environmental conservation and opt for this route instead. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Janice Palmer. I live in North Kentville, and I just want to say that I support Ron Cousins. I mean, really.
Can't hear it back.
Oh, I'd just like to say that I want to support Ron Cousins and his old growth forest. I mean, for God's sakes, council, you have the power to save a little portion of old growth forest. You know how important that is? Nova Scotia has a tartan that has green in it. The green represents the forest. I think it's time we're going to have to take that green out of the Nova Scotia tartan. Have you been in a plane lately? Have you looked down, got off your cell phones and looked down and seen the clear cutting that's going on in Nova Scotia? Everywhere. It's everywhere. The forests are going. And this is a small portion that the town of Kentville has the power to protect. So be a leader and be progressive. Progressive isn't building interchanges, isn't building housing, isn't building roads. To be progressive today is to save an old growth forest. It's so important. Please think about this. Thank you.
My name is Ken Harrison. I'm a resident of Kentville. I grew up here. I was away for 33 years and I'm now back for 14. I want you to know that if you want an example of what happens when you deforest an area, take a look at the Kena Heights area, up just in New Minas. Take a close look at that, because we had a situation when I was in my 20s when we had 7.36 inches of rain in 36 hours, thanks to Hurricane Beth in 1971, August. The water came through under Old Exit 12 just at the time that it was shortly after it had opened. It moved through there and it tore through the Prospect Road that's used every day by hundreds of people now, directly across. It's the shortcut essentially from Chester over to Kent Homes. It washed that road into the Elderkin Brook, which is the research station ravine, and it completely flooded Eves Hollow. The only way to get to Wolfville for a day or so was to go through Colebrook, get on the next interchange there, and then go back. So I suggest you think about that, because if we don't, we're going to have another situation that these other people have mentioned. So give it some thought. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, council has items which must be conducted in a closed session, and we require a motion to go into a closed session to discuss the agenda items. We will not be returning to YouTube for completion of the meeting or adjournment. And so the motion is to move into a closed session to discuss the agenda items. Councillor Zabian, thank you. And for the second? Councillor Huntley, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council move into a closed session. The question is on adoption of the motion to move into a closed session. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And the time is 7:17.